So, introduce yourselves.
My name's Dan Marshall. I'm the what am I? What's my job?
Owner, boss.
Yeah, the
Boss
king
man.
of Size 5 Games.
Okay, and you're?
I am Ben. I'm Dan's best mate, and I sometimes do design work with him on the Dan and Ben games.
Sure. And you're here to announce, or you have announced, your new game, which is called?
Which is Lair of the Clockwork God.
And that is, it's a not a follow-up, it's sort of like a standalone.
I'm
right?
saying standalone a lot because it's a hard enough market as it is selling indie games.
Yeah.
I don't really want people to think they have to have played 2 games in
Yeah,
order to understand what's going on.
The first Dan and Ben game was like 2008, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
It's
it's
a long
10
time
years
ago.
But it's one of those things that we keep on getting when you're doing a third one, when you're doing a third one, when you're doing a third one. To the point that it seems rude not to try.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm hopeful there's like enough of a community there of people who played those games and remember those games fondly enough. But at the same time, I don't want people to feel like they have to have played 2 games to get into it. So we're like trying to be clear that. Fortunately, at the end of those 2 games, the universe like got reset.
Yeah.
Everyone died, and
Spoilers.
God turned up and took everything back. So it's almost as if those events of those 2 games never actually happened, which gives us a nice clean starting point for this one.
So it is a new adventure, but obviously I imagine you're going to have some nods in there for people who played the other 2 games.
Yeah, there's a couple of we said we would not do any. We said like we just don't make any references to Ben that and that lasted about 5 minutes, and then so there are some, but they're not plot critical. They're just little hidden Easter eggs in the background rather than.
But if you haven't played the other 2, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Sure. So tell me about the game. That you were telling me about the unique. If you haven't already seen the trailer, we'll probably embed it in the page. But tell me about the game.
So the idea is that Ben is a die-hard LucasArts point-and-click adventure fan. So his feet are firmly on the ground, and he's got an inventory of items to combine and look at, and he likes.
Is that true? Is that true about you?
Yeah, no, that's
Always. Yeah.
So he's an old school point-and-click character. And Dan has decided that there's no money to be made in adventure games anymore, and he's going to be an indie darling platformer instead. So he's all about running, jumping, wall climbing, spikes and all that sort of stuff. And the game is basically about these 2 characters who have very different skill sets and very different abilities, and working them together. So you flip between the 2 and you work together through the levels.
So you can see that from the trailer, how you're switching between like a platform and an adventure game. Was that difficult to design, or was it quite natural?
It's a bit of a pain sometimes, because the trouble is that we try to keep the levels like tight, because otherwise they're miles apart from each other. We want to minimise like backtracking and walking all over the place. But Dan's side of things, which is the platforming stuff, necessitates quite a long, quite a large space to operate in. So quite often his areas have to go off on a tangent and then loop back to where Ben's likely to be stuck in places. And then later on in the game, we've implemented stuff like this. You can combine items together to make a teleporter, so you can bring the 2 together. So we've done everything we can to sort of implement these things along the way that minimises that initial design problem. But yeah,
So obviously you're sort of known for just churning out games in a really fast fashion. Is it? How long have you been working on this? Sort of, not in a bad way.
It's about I think it's like 2 years in between every game.
Sure.
Which is, I think, a lot. It's a gamble. When in the indie market, especially where things are going, it's harder and harder to sell games. I would try and cut that down to a year if I could.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I think Kickman gave that impression a bit. It felt like you've gone, I fancy making a game. Here's that game.
That was just silly fun rather than.
Sure. So how long have you been working on this then?
Well, we've been talking about it for 10 years. We've been talking about it. It's been through various different design iterations and various different.
For a long time, it was just an adventure game.
It was just an adventure game,
and that was the problem. Really,
and certainly, that was the problem, because we felt like we told all those jokes, and done all that in Time, Gentlemen, Please, and we didn't really want to just be recycling all our material. So we've been talking about it, and all through Swindle's development, all through Kickman's development, we've been meeting up and really refining these puzzles and refining what the plot is, and chopping stuff out and saying that doesn't really work. This is, this could be better, and
Yeah, because the first two games we made, they had like an improvisational quality where we were just making them up as they went. We didn't know what the ending was going to be.
And they had an improvisational quality because we were going down the pub and going, what's the next what's the next level? And then we'd design it in the pub and then we'd go home and make it. And that's why they feel like really sort of hodgepodge.
Yeah, and this one we've kind of been forced to make sure all the structure's in place in it, or like all the levels are in, like we know what the levels are, and then we know what the puzzles are, and then we know how the adventuring and platforming interact, and one of them doesn't break the other, and all that kind of thing. So we've had to be quite.
The word you're looking for is we've had to design it like grown-ups.
We've
had to do it like a professional might.
That's right. Professional. We've had to be professional.
So you were saying for the longest time it was just an adventure game. When did the platforming elements come in?
I think it's because we cancelled a couple of the adventure games, as I said, because we felt like we'd used all the material. We were like telling the same thing, and I think that was the original conversation was about doing it as a platformer, like purely as a platformer, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were both going to be.
They were both giving up, and becoming platformers instead, and then we started to eke towards Ben, 1 foot in the passing him. He could still jump for the longest time. He could still jump and do all the same stuff as Dan.
I think because the thing was that we said why are we having two of them if they're both just doing the same, if they've both got the same skill set, why have two of them?
And that was one of the eureka moments when we're like, okay, if Ben's just doing this stuff and Dan's just doing that stuff, you get so much more gameplay out of those two characters, helping each other out, more interesting setups and scenarios. And that was when once we locked that down, the simplicity of it, and it feels like you're just cutting away loads of fat from the concept, and you go, okay, there's a purity to this.
But I think we first threw the idea of it being a platformer around in 2010, and I think we shied away from it because it just seemed like such a big
it did
thing to take on.
That was before Unity, and before making platformers was a lot more work in a lot of ways. Certainly before Unity brought in all its 2D stuff and all its all the extra tools that they've got now, like the tile maps and all the sprite work and stuff. It was that's a fairly hefty job.
Yeah.
Did you ever consider just making it a platformer, or are those constraints that you were talking about? Did they just put you off completely? And you thought it has to be part of each game?
Yeah. I think once we'd locked down that duality of the two characters, we were pretty locked into the concept of.
But I guess that probably makes it more difficult than just it being a platform, right? Because you're having to do all the platform stuff.
To do all the adventure games.
So to layer that stuff on top is extra complications.
I mean, the platform stuff's actually a lot harder. The adventure game stuff is relatively simple because it's not physics based, so you know where the character is and what they're doing, and it's just UI and finding hotspots and that sort of stuff.
Lots of writing.
And lots of writing, and the platform stuff is a lot harder because that's the stuff where bugs come in, and you can get him slightly stuck on the corner of a tile, or how high the jump should be to make it fun and flow nicely and all that sort of stuff.
So we talked a lot about the gameplay, but can you give me an elevator pitch of the story? What's the plot? What are we trying to achieve here?
So Dan and Ben get to London and to find that all the apocalypses are happening at the exact same time.
Okay.
So everything that can possibly go wrong, like giant robots, zombies, squid monsters, meteors, alien invasions, the lot are all happening. And they seek refuge in this shed. We haven't talked about how much into the plot we're going to, but basically the plot revolves around the two of them trying to teach a computer, an old computer, what it means to be human, in order to stave off these apocalypses.
And where does the title come from? The Clockwork God?
That was you, wasn't it? I said I wanted a really pulp adventure.
Sure.
Something that you would be at the top of a book that's 50p in a pub, something that written like a James Herbert novel or something like that.
Yeah.
And Ben sat there quietly for about an hour, about half an hour, just writing down
different words. I'd
I won't say bad words.
I'd seen Tim Schafer on the Double Fine Adventure documentary with his like 3 books worth of titles before we got to Grim Fandango. So I was like, right, that's what I'm doing.
Writing. And then as I remember it, it was like item 3 on the list, and you read it out, and I just went that one.
Yeah.
And then the next day, I was like, "How do you feel about Lair the Clockwork?" Like really tentatively, I said to you, "How do you feel about it?" And he was like, I still really like it." I was like, "Oh God, I still really like it," because it was originally longer than that, wasn't it? It was called like Into the Lair of the Clockwork God, or like it was something a little bit longer.
I think we also played with just the Clockwork God, or Dan and Ben meet the Clockwork God versus the Clockwork. You know.
But there's something about the word Lair that just it sends tingles.
Yeah.
It's like I always really like books that are about. It's like my favourite summer books. If there's someone finds some Nazi gold in a jungle, I'm happy. Like anything that involves someone finding a map, I'm happy with. So like all that sort of stuff really sends tingles through me. That so like that Uncharted, like Raiders of the Lost Ark sort of stuff really works for me. And like there's something about the word Lair that I really like. That just immediately implies sinister.
It's like is it H. Rider Haggard? Is that the writer who did She and stuff like that?
I have no idea.
Alan Quartermain, it's that kind of thing.
Okay, yeah. Quartermain's totally. Yeah.
Can you remember any other titles that stood out as potential ones?
Don't remember any of them.
Were they just ludicrous, some of them?
Are we saying?
Yeah, there was, because it's about teaching the computer about feelings. For the longest time, it was called Once More with Feelings.
Sure.
Which followed the same. Oh, I don't like that. That's too late now. If you like it. But I felt, first of all, it's got that comma exclamation mark setup of been there, done that, and time to please. And I really wanted it to feel like this isn't the third game. So that was. But I always just felt it's a great title, but it's not a good title. So it's a funny one that makes you go,
it's clever.
"Oh, that's clever." It's a clever title. It's not a good game title. You're going to see that on the Steam store and go, "What's this?" Because it's disingenuous. It implies it implies musical. To me, it implies it's like a musical, or it implies it's like a bit more maybe wishy-washy than it is.
There was the worry that it was leaning heavily on the sequel as well. If it's Once More, it was maybe like
it's like saying, "Oh, you have to have played the other two." So like it never really sat right with me. But it's a great title. But like maybe we'll put it as like subtitle. We'll put it in somewhere. Yeah.
And so I was looking at the Eurogamer piece, and you were talking about the possibility of the Switch, and you said that you didn't want to make any firm stances. Is that still the same?
It's the same. Oddly enough, I was talking to someone just yesterday about doing the port, which I'm really happy about. The trouble is, the game does have some odd stuff in it. Like we're talking about the plot. The whole thing's got this like bread and butter adventure game platforming thing through it. But it's also like kind of a pastiche of indie games. It's like a love letter to what indie games do and can do. And as a result of that, like some of the puzzles are quite out there. They tug at the concept of what a game is allowed to be in weird ways. And I can just see Nintendo or Xbox or someone saying, "You can't do that on our system." Like you can do it on Steam because that's one thing. You can't do that on our system. It will fail once. So I don't want to like say. I mean, it's not a problem because we'll just rewrite those sections for the console. But that might add 3 months to the development. It might add all sorts of problems. And I'm really like. You know when people do Kickstarters and they say it's coming to Switch and PlayStation 4, and you go, you can't possibly have had that conversation with them yet. They might turn around and say no. Like, how can you do that? So I just don't think it's really fair on people to say this is definitely coming to Switch when I myself don't know. It's set up to go on Switch. I've got business deals in place coming in to do it on Switch.
Very much
but until I see an email from Nintendo, I'm just going to say let's just.
Yeah, it's like one of those old NES games that they're putting on the Switch now. But that game told you to go and look at the manual and like use a red looking glass to look at something in the manual to get a secret message, and now they can't do that, so they just like print it on the screen, or it breaks the game or something. It's like stuff like that.
So otherwise it's just PC, just Steam that you think of at the moment? That's the only one
just
firmly planned?
Purely on Steam at the moment, unless Epic email me tomorrow and say, "Do you want $40 million to be exclusive?" At which point I might change my mind.
Negotiate, Uncle. So.
But yeah, I'm not taking anything less than 100 mil. You're right.
So anything else you want to say about Lair of the Clockwork God?
Well, the only other thing we're sort of talking about is how how we're sort of rethinking point and clicks a little bit. That I don't know about you, but when I think of point and clicks, I haven't really played an adventure game in a long time because my life is not. When I was a kid, I used to play all of them a lot, but they're games that require a lot of time and a lot of reading and a lot of like sort of going through dialogue choices and not a lot of things going on. So we've done a lot of work in making it feel like all those great mechanics that we love, like inventories and verbs and combining items and all that sort of stuff. No, but like lots of verbs. They took all the verbs out for adventure games. One click does everything. One click looks at, one click uses, one click opens, one click, and that takes away quite a lot of the puzzle elements, quite a lot of that sort of stuff. But we want to retain all that. But how do we do that in a way that fits with people's understanding of what games are now and keeping it fast-paced and forward? So like the platforming game structure of it lets us do that. So it's really forward-focused. It's really like driven. It's not. There's no backtracking. There's no meandering around the place trying to work out what the puzzles even are. You start a level and it's like, here are your puzzles for this section. And then once you're done with that, you move on and you want to.
You don't want people to think it's going to be like Monkey Island.
I don't want you to think it's going to be this huge expansive area that you keep on having to go back. Like, now I can use the key on the chest that I saw like 4 hours ago.
And you always say, don't you, that it's always a bit daunting when you get to a new area of an adventure game. It's there's 10 different locations.
Everything on everything.
I said to you yesterday, it's like, it's 10. You get to a new area and there's like 10 shops, and that's 10 shopkeepers you've got to talk to, and you can't even find out what the puzzles are before you even think about solving them. So we tried really hard to like make sure it's streamlined. So we take out verbs that are redundant. So if you come up to an object and like, if it's like a burger, you might have, look at, eat, smell. But if it's, camera, you would take the smell thing away and the eat thing away and have things that are context sensitive.
We've come a long way.
But like, we always felt that like, recent adventure games just went too far with taking stuff away. It's like, one click does everything. It's like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything anymore. I'm just clicking on items in a room. And we've got there's a lot of other stuff that we push items to the background that aren't all the colours on the stuff that you can't interact with are kind of muted, which isn't like a new thing, but it really helps. You can see it at an instant which stuff in this room. I mean, I'm not going to bother trying to use the plant because I can see that's visually that's different. Like, and that's quite different from the old point and clicks where like we all got to a point in a point and click where you just move the mouse over the screen like this, hoping to see it change to a use thing. So it's that's kind of the other thing we're talking about, which is that it's a point and click. It's point and click, but it's a point and click that has been adapted for.
We're chopping away the correct stuff rather than chopping away all the meaty stuff. We're chopping away the chaff.
Yeah.
So have you got a release date nailed down?
We're looking at end of August, ideally, unless something goes awry. You never know. But hopefully end of August.
Okay, just PC confirmed, and we'll see you later.
And hopefully Switch.
Sure. All right. Well, thank you very much, Dan and Ben. That's Lair of the Clockwork God. Coming later this year, hopefully.
Thank you very much.